Okay, let's kick off. So today the webinar that we're doing for ESOS is with EnergyDeck, one of our partners, and it's looking at how you can use both the IES ESOS Auditor software and EnergyDeck together. Now IES, our sort of background is within building simulation. We were founded and headquartered in Glasgow in 1994. We've pioneered the use of building simulation in the architecture and engineering communities, and we now have a global presence around the UK, US, Canada, India, Europe, Australia and Middle East. Our virtual environment technology is at the core of everything we do, and we look at things across from master planning through all the different stages of design on into operation and control, and we're starting to look at how buildings can come together as communities. We have software now in over 140 countries. With our ESOS Auditor software, we developed that in conjunction with the Energy Managers Association, and it was reviewed by Kit Young, who was the technical author of the ESOS PAS standard. And the idea is that you can build and store all of your data that you require to undertake ESOS compliance and your evidence pack requirements of that, as well as producing reports. So it's a cloud-based tool. There are multiple users that can have access across multiple sites. It's secure and it allows you to import data in bulk or add it individually as you go along. The latest on this from last month was that ESOS Auditor has been accepted as part of your evidence pack requirements. So if you're chosen to be audited by your regulator, for example the Environment Agency in England, they will accept a login to the site as proof that you've covered off these key parts of your evidence pack requirements. So your evidence pack needs to be stored for between 8 to 12 years because it's the current compliance period and the 2 compliance periods after that, and it is your record of all the steps you've taken to comply with ESOS. So it includes things like your total energy consumption calculations and all the evidence to support that, your identified areas of significant energy consumption, your evidence that's linked to that, and your evidence linked to the audits that you've undertaken, and also your energy saving opportunities that you've identified. At this point, I'm going to pass you over to Nick Mason from EnergyDeck.
Fantastic. Thanks, Edwina. Hi, I'm Nick from EnergyDeck. EnergyDeck is a new online energy and resource management platform, also cloud-based, software as a service. Our focus is on how we can acquire data and information about buildings and consumption within buildings and usage of buildings in order to create comparable building data sets and provide a way of actually drawing some understanding of how buildings are being used and comparisons between buildings so people can learn how to use buildings better and share their knowledge about buildings. So in terms of this screen here, we're looking at the different aspects that we collect. We're focused on getting that site data stored on EnergyDeck. We're also looking at ways of getting a wide range of data, not just energy. We're also interested in a wide range of environmental data sets, production data sets, utilization data sets, and then looking at how we can use that to provide analysis for quick understanding of an intuitive understanding of what's going on within your buildings. We really start to shine when we come to our benchmarking. We take everyone's data, we mix it together, and we create real-time benchmarks so people can actually get an understanding of how they're performing today, not against national benchmark sets, which are often out of date. And then we look at how we can extract that information and provide regular up-to-date reporting for users. And then at the other end, we actually track energy efficiency projects and we validate the savings from those projects. We then take that information, anonymize it, and make it publicly available for any user to check so that you can understand how well you're doing on energy efficiency, but also say, hey, you can share that back out with the broader community. And it's these aspects of collecting data around the sites, the meters of consumption, and tracking projects, which is where we're working with ESOS Auditor to make ESOS reporting not just a compliance process, but also an ongoing energy management piece. Really, when we talk about the benefits of EnergyDeck, we look at 4 key aspects. Firstly, we're all about connecting anything. So if you can get any kind of data to us, we'll take it. You can enter that data manually, you can upload it via spreadsheets, or preferably, we can find a way of getting data into an automatic data source. And again, that's not just energy. It's often environmental data, it's increasingly waste data or transport data. There are a lot of automatic sources out there that we can tag. We're also focused on providing a single platform to view all this data, and that's actually one of the key benefits we provide, the data integrator layer. So it doesn't matter what physical data systems you may have within each of your buildings or waste providers or where it might be, we can put it all in one place for view. The auto analytics is looking at how we can take that data and then provide useful analysis off the back of it, actionable insights. And then more importantly, for the ESOS point of view, it's about the project tracking. It's about how can we take the recommended projects that come out of the back of the ESOS audits and provide people a way of implementing them and then tracking the benefit of them over the next 4 years.
And just as a little introduction before we dive into the demo which Phil and Nick are going to give us, with regards to ESOS Auditor and EnergyDeck, the reason which we joined together was wanting to make a simpler and more complete route to ESOS compliance so that you could manage it as part of an ongoing energy efficiency program and track the benefits of implementing energy saving opportunities as well. So we outlined sort of 5 easy steps as to how we think that the tools will start to fit together. So you can collect and store the data across both tools and share the data between the tools, and you can then within EnergyDeck identify some really low-hanging fruit to cut out some energy waste. Then obviously to get your ESOS compliance, you'd do that with inside ESOS Auditor. And then you can identify your energy saving measures and start to rank them and within both the tools, and then finally going on within EnergyDeck to look at tracking the impact of which measures you decide to implement. So I'm going to pass over, so there's going to be a slight pause as we change presenter to Nick, who's going to dive in with the EnergyDeck part of the demo.
Hi, so at this point I want to take people through a very high-level demo, so not an in-depth one at all, of the EnergyDeck platform. Just look at some of the key features leading up to the point where you would take the data and use it on with the ESOS Auditor tool. So with EnergyDeck, when you log on, the first thing a user sees is this overview or the summary screen of their portfolio of sites, and we can put sites within different organization units depending on geography or business unit. And we have an overview summary of consumption, and then we have a site locator and a very simple site table showing relative efficiencies of the different sites, and in this table we can switch between electricity and heating and water and waste depending on the data sets that you're collecting for each of the sites. If we go into the sites themselves, we get another summary screen. This is a high-level screen that will give a site location, it will give a summary of the overall consumption of the site, and it will allow access to a very basic charting functionality that will give you the past week, the past month, or perhaps the past year's consumption data and allow you to compare with the previous period. At the same time, you can go into the benchmarks and you can see your site against the CIBSE benchmark, so that's the actual usage, the average and the best in class, versus your own portfolio of sites, or versus our global database. And we can also create community groups, which allows you to connect with like-minded companies to create benchmarks between your accounts. The key with these benchmarks is they're updated on a daily basis. And so as we get more information and more data coming in, our benchmarks get better and better. These summary screens are in fact designed so that you can invite users onto EnergyDeck and not necessarily give them access to all the complexity that sits behind the data, but allow them a very high-level overview of exactly how their particular site or the portfolio as a whole is performing. If we look into the setup screen, it's where you get into a bit more of the details. So when we create new buildings, we're looking to understand what type of building it is, and that's based on the CIBSE high-level typology. We're looking to understand the name of the building, the floor space to drive the benchmarks, and also the address. And something we've found over the years is that addresses seem to be pretty poor at locating anything. And so we have a system where we search for the address, drop the pin, and confirm the location to pick up the latitude and longitude. That for us is key because it pins your site to a specific location, and then we automatically attach degree day data and in a month or two weather data to the site, and as we go forward there'll be more and more external data sets attached to the sites. Once the site's created, we have that on EnergyDeck. You can go in and provide greater detail, and that's done in a couple of different ways. Firstly, it's around the physical structure of the site, and so we can define floors and rooms within a site, actually define them as different building types, which allows you to give an overall building benchmark, but also a specific room or floor benchmark if it's actually a retail unit or a server room or an office floor. We can also tackle information around the operations of the site, the fabric of the site, the services contained, and then most importantly the metering for ESOS. And we track the consumption meters. We also have environmental meters and generation meters. Now, consumption meters could be electricity, fuels, water waste, transportation, travel, so a range of different metrics, a range of different subcategories within those metrics. And we can take that data either directly read from meters, manually I mean, via utility bills, or by connecting to an automatic metering source, probably a half-hourly supply. We can also collect your MPAN and your profile class data to support other reporting requirements, and all meters are attached to a CO2 emission factor as well. Environmental meters are anything that is not consumption or generation but might impact on consumption and generation. So we think about the electricity submetrics, but also true environmental sensors around a number of metrics, which are growing actually this list as we integrate with more and more environmental metering sensing providers. We also collect contract information, so you can put your tariffs against the metering and get instantaneous feedback on costs. You have unlimited users per account, but you can restrict their roles based on buildings and on sub-buildings on whether they read or write. We connect to a range of data sources automatically. And you'll see a number of the half-hourly data collectors on this list, and that number is growing over time as well. But the majority are independent metering hardware platforms that we can extract data from directly onto EnergyDeck. We also manage then the quality of the data coming through, and you can keep track of whether or not meters are up or down on a day-to-day basis. Once the data is in there, we have a very simple analytics tool that allows you to get in and to understand exactly what data you're seeing. So we're trying to make the data viewing as intuitive as possible. So for example, if we go into the heating category, we're able to pull through all the data on a monthly basis and then overlay heat and degree days information or other external environmental data on top. So you begin to be able to run a very quick analysis of the data. There's a number of ways we can extract the data from EnergyDeck, whether it's saving a file, saving an image file, or exporting what you see in the chart to a CSV, or pulling data, the raw data off the actual meters themselves. But in terms of, if we're talking about the ESOS Auditor tool, we have the ability to extract data regarding the sites and the meters, either at each organization and the organization sub-level, where you can export to CSV and that'll pull through the information about the sites that you recorded, like the meters and also the consumption, or on a building-by-building basis. And that data is what we can then take, transform into ESOS Auditor data and upload into the tool. And at this point, I'll pass over to Phil to take you through the ESOS Auditor tool.
Thanks, Nick. We'll just log into the ESOS tool now, and we can have a look at where this data goes. Okay, so within the ESOS tool that IES has developed, I've set up a sample project for today, so we can have a quick look at a small scale project, the upload of data, and then how that's stored so that we can frame the idea behind data collection and then where we can put that within the ESOS framework. So I'll just log into the account that I've created. So what we can see here is the home screen on the IES ESOS Auditor. The idea behind the tool that we've created is a single place to upload and store the data and produce ESOS compliance reports. The account that we have here, I've set up some sub-companies. We're not going to use them all, but it's just to give an idea of the flexibility of the system. We can set a tree as many levels as we like. So depending on your company complexity, you can have as many subgroups or sub-departments or organisations as you want to track through the site. And as we go through, we have options throughout the site where that information can be very useful to us, and we can filter, we can create reports at each level, and it also means we can distribute tasks amongst the team. So if I'll move straight through now to the energy data, and if we have a look for one of the sample companies, so I'll just choose company A here, it will be blank at this point. The way that we organise the data, we have supplies which represent meters, and then those meters can be associated to either buildings or processes. The idea here being we don't always have the level of data that EnergyDeck, for example, would give us. So we might want to split one data source between a building and a process. Maybe we know that the process accounts for 40%, but we don't have that information submetered. And then the other category of data that ESOS is interested in would be your transport costs. So the first thing we would do usually would be to define the buildings and the processes. And the manual method to do this is just to add a building, and then we get a quick form to complete. So we can select the sub-organisation that belongs to, building name, the type of building from the standard sorted list, a description, so some notes if you want to identify the building, address details, town, postcode, the head count, the number of people that the building serves, the floor area of the building, the year it was constructed, and if it wasn't part of the organisation for the full ESOS reference period, we can have an acquired and unacquired date. Again, just giving us that extra bit of flexibility for buildings or processes or meters that don't cover the full reference year. So when we've added buildings, they would show up in this list. Similarly for the processes, it's a short form to complete for each one. Subgroup it belongs to, name, description, acquired and unacquired, and an option to exclude or not from the ESOS report. The supplies we would then define through this. So you have a fuel, so we'd have a meter for each fuel consumption that the building or the process consumes or uses. You can identify the organisation that meter is attached to, a reference number so we can identify it, the area that it serves, and then description, acquired and unacquired. You'll see in these forms there are some mandatory fields marked with a red asterisk. The idea of putting them when the data is being added is that we're making sure we have complete data sets from the outset. What we don't want is half-complete projects as we approach the compliance deadline and the panic starts. So we're trying to organise and encourage good habits from the outset. So we could set these through manually. What I'm going to do in this case is actually show the batch upload that we have. Batches are a way that you can collect your data in a CSV file, so something that can be done in a spreadsheet. It can be sent out to team members, it can be collected by a responsible person from the company. It could come from meter data, for example, and that's the kind of example that I'm going to show today. So the likes of what Nick was saying can be exported from EnergyDeck would be ideal in this case. A lot of the hard work's been done, you've collected the data, and it's just a case of organising it and putting it into this one system so that it can all be collected together and then reported for your ESOS. So the first thing we would do when defining the new projects or the project data would be to add the buildings and the processes. So if we start at buildings, and we can download a template, so for each type, we'll just download this and open it. So for each template, we're giving the format that the data needs to be presented in so it can be uploaded back to the system in a single click. So you'll see there's a header in the template here, and if we scroll down to where we would begin to enter this data, so we can see that there's a column for each required bit of information that you would associate to the project. So building name, the building type, head count, floor area, year, acquired, unacquired, so everything that was in that form that we saw previously. In this case I actually have a sample that I've already created, so I'll attach that first. And we're associating it to company A for this example. So if we upload the buildings, and I'll just show the data that I have stored in here. So we've got 3 buildings in this example. We've got a studio, a garage and an office. And I've entered this data already to represent each of the building types. And when we check on the system, we see successful, 3 records have been inserted. So if I have a look now and we begin to see the build-up of the data on the system, check the buildings, and we can filter depending on what level we want to view the information. So I'll just look at this company in this case. And we can see the buildings have now been entered. The data can be edited afterwards, so if there's any errors or mistakes that we want to correct afterwards, or if new data comes to light, it can be easily edited. Just come back. And we can associate deck information if we have that for the buildings. So it's another added value of the type of information we can collect within this system and the way it's presented. I'll come back to the batches now. So the next thing that I want to define in this case, I've not got any processes to keep it simple, but the next thing I want to define would be my meters, which is the energy supplies. So now we download the template. I'll just open that one up. So we can see now the template's picked up the buildings that we've already created. We have an organisation ID, which is for the sub-company those buildings belong to, the organisation name, which was company A for this one, a building ID for each entry, and a building name. This lets us begin to tie the data together on the system. If we had processes, they would also appear here. So in this case, I've actually got, again, the sample data prepared. So I'll open up my meters. And I just need to replace, now that we have the up-to-date template, the organisation ID and name. So I'll do that just now. So I want to associate these ones to the head office in this case. So it's 708. And I've already entered some data here. The type of data we expect that we'd be uploading at this point would be meters that are associated to the different energy consumptions in the building. So for this one, I've got an electricity meter and a gas meter. The fuel type has to come from the predefined set for the project. So on the CSV, we give that as a drop-down or as an option. The allocated area I'll show in a second, but effectively these meters are 100% allocated to this building. So that's all we're saying at this point. The area served, and then descriptions and the date range that the meter covers. So in this case, it's just for the month of April in my reference year. So if I save this, and it has to be kept in a CSV. That's the only thing that's very important. And I'll upload this one. And we see that this one's successfully been added. And if we check again to see the build-up of this picture, we now have data in the supplies. And if I go to check one of these, we can now see it's already picked up the head office. So it's associated all the way through. That can be edited again afterwards. And similarly, if any of the details of the supply need updated, we can edit that afterwards. And we can now see that we're beginning to build up a story of the information that we have for this company. So the final upload that I want to do would be the energy associated to these meters. So if I check the electricity meter in the first place, we can see the energy usage hasn't been added yet. There's another form to do that, and it picks up that it's for that meter. We can enter the fuel, the cost, a reading associated to it, the source, the date range that covers, and then attach any evidence. In this case, I've got a sample which shows for the lights and the heating. So we've got the month of April's been recorded. It's half hourly. We've got a little dashboard there. And then what we're interested in is the total energy consumption. So we've got that for the month there in kilowatt hours, and then the cost at whatever tariff the building's on. So we have one of these for the gas, and we have another one for our lighting electricity in this case. So we want to enter that data. And again, I've prepared that in advance. So if we pop back onto the system, to the batches once more, and we're ready to do the energy usage. So I need to get the template again. And at this point, it's important to choose the right level because we want to associate the data to the right information, the right parts of the buildings. So I'll set this and then download the template. And this is where we begin to see how quickly this can be done. Collecting the data together is probably the hard part, and if you're using a system already to track it, it's going to save you a lot of effort in the long run. So if we've got that information already, we're looking for the fastest way to put it onto this and minimise the effort involved for this part of the ESOS. The data collection we're beginning to find can be the hardest part, especially for a complex company structure. So we feel that joining up with different systems and using these batch inputs can be a really quick way to achieve it with the minimum effort from the company. So the information we need for this upload is the meter number, the data covers, what fuel it uses, what costs for that, the meter reading if we want to enter this, and then the comments, so any notes to identify. So on the template in this case, it's given us the 2 meters that we've already defined and then what fuels they're using. So we'll use those references in order to tie up the loose ends. So if I open up the energy, I'll just attach this. It's just taking a second. I'll upload it while it's opening. You can have a look at it afterward. So this one's been added in. And actually if I use the ESOS system now, we can have a look at that data. So we have our 3 buildings, studio, the office, the garage. We have the meters which we've associated to the head office in this case. And then if we check each of these meters now, it's not there. Sorry, just a second. I think that this CSV's got jammed in some way. Just wait a moment while I try and resolve it. Here we go. Okay. So we have the meters. We've got it for the month of April in our reference year. The costs and the usage which came from our recorded data, the meter reading, and then any comments to identify what this data is associated with. I'll just try uploading this once more and see if it appears. If we apply the filter for the company, associate this and then upload. So in this case I think it's failed to re-upload because I've already attached it. I'll just see if I can find it again. Be a second. May well be the date range. Okay, sorry, my mistake. Looking at the wrong period. This tool's to be used for hopefully for the next 3 phases of ESOS. So we're adding date filters in so that we can see the historical data as well as adding new data as we go along. So we've now got the energy consumption for April that's come off this. The final thing we might want to do, we can add if the data source was from a meter reading, if it's an estimate, non-verifiable or provisional. So it's actually from a reading in this case. And we can actually attach the evidence as well. So this one was the gas meter. So if we attach this, and we can put a note for our ESOS auditor or for our assessor to say that the meter data attached so that it can actually be checked and verified. And that's the next level in our ESOS tool. The data checker, which can be the lead assessor, for example, can log in and they can see, okay, 2 new items to be checked under company A, have a look at these, we see them presented, we can check the gas meter. It shows that the evidence is available, we can download that, and when ready, we can just log in and say that that's been passed and save. And we see the progress bar at this point updates to say that that's been passed. So that will keep us right along the way. It shows how much data has been attached and then how much has been checked. And when all the data has been attached and checked, the final section would be our reporting. So we'll have energy saving measures from the ESOS lead assessor. We can enter as many of these as we like. So based on the research on the building, what site visits have been carried out, what the main energy consumptions that have been identified and what saving measures we can put in place, as well as the predicted savings, the cost saving, costs to implement, if it's an estimate or a quote, the simple payback or a life cycle depending on what assessment's been done on this measure, and then a prioritisation. Oh, and sorry, and if that's been done through an ESOS energy audit or one of the other compliance routes that's available, because we can have decks, we can have ISO 5001 if the company's been through that, green deals, they will all be accepted for ESOS, but we expect in most cases it will be an energy audit itself, and then whatever evidence pack. So if that's from a quote from the provider, or if it's through some other means that's been assessed, we can attach this and then a toggle option to say if we want that included in our ESOS report or not. And the ESOS report that comes from the IES ESOS Auditor, it's the final report. It will be accepted for an ESOS, so it can be printed off when it's complete. And again, we'll know it's complete because we need to reach our 90%, so we need to really go through every aspect of the organisation. The energy saving measures are listed out with their payback, their savings, and then we get sign off from our directors and from our lead assessors. So that is the final report that would be uploaded for the ESOS, and that completes this presentation of the IES ESOS Auditor, and hopefully you can see how we can use this information and how easily it can be stored and presented. So I'll pass you back over to Edwina now.
Thanks, Phil, and thanks, Nick. I'm just going to pass you back to Nick, who's just going to quickly finish the demo part by looking at how you can go on and measure any opportunities that you've actually implemented yourselves.
Okay. Hello again. The last part, I guess, or the next part for us, is that we're looking to take then the energy savings measures that have been identified and then track those against each individual building on EnergyDeck. We have the ratings and audits tab here where you can track your standard ratings, but also add audits that have been done, and including uploading the files associated with the audits, so you have a record of those on EnergyDeck. And then from this screen, we can create recommended projects, which drop into the projects workflow. And the projects workflow will give you the ability to look, I don't know if we have others specified, but look at projects that have been specified across your portfolio, and then go into the individual projects, review the progress, review the savings achieved, and review the estimated costs versus the actual costs, and actually look at what the outcome has been from the audit. And again, so while the ESOS audit tool is looking at the ESOS audits, and this is a generic approach for us in terms of audits and projects, and actually being able to understand sort of what benefits are being gathered from projects. So our aim as part of this is to actually look at ESOS not as a point in time compliance requirement, which of course it is, but to sort of look beyond that and say, actually with the energy savings measures generated, it offers you the ability to then manage an energy efficiency program over the next 4 years before the next ESOS compliance period, and we can, sorry about that, we can help you manage that process, help you validate the savings achieved, all the while collecting the information, the data that you need for the subsequent ESOS compliance process, and effectively just streamlining that entire piece over time. And so that is where I'm at. Thanks, Edwina.
Okay, that concludes the webinar for today. We are just at the point, I think, where we're going to round it up and take any questions. The final point which we want to make really is just, I think, obviously it's 5 months to the compliant date this weekend. The latest figures we've seen from the Environment Agency are that only 32 of the 10,000 plus companies that are eligible have complied, and There's not so many lead assessors about, and there appears to be quite a bit of competition to get onto lead assessor books at the moment. So if you haven't done that now, I'd definitely recommend that you think about employing your lead assessor now. So this is some of the pricing for ESOS Auditor, and Nick, this is some of the pricing for EnergyDeck. So they're quite similar. ESOS Auditor is done on an annual license and then builds up by user, and EnergyDeck is by site and data feed. And do you want to add anything to that, Nick?
I just wanted to add that it's a monthly calculated billing, so generally we look at an annual contract, but there are no lock-in fees, so it is calculated on a monthly basis, allowing people to fluctuate their portfolio over time and adding as much flexibility as we can in terms of how you manage your data in your portfolio.
Okay, I'm just going to open the floor up to any questions now. Okay, there's one that's come in. So the question here is, hi, we have a site that has multiple buildings but not sub-metered for the compliance period. How would we capture floor plan when we are spread over 15 acres?
The tool that we've created would allow you to upload a single record for that in that case. You can have 1 meter that would associate to those buildings, and then, you know, so whatever level of breakdown you have, this website, the tool that we have, would let you capture that and then report it at the end. It can be as vague as 1 single energy bill, for example, right down to meters in every single process and building. ESOS, I don't think, specifies. It depends what people have collected already. And it doesn't have to come off meter data, it can come off bills or any other way that you have of recording that information.
Do you want to add anything to that, Nick?
Only to say that with the ability to have organization units and any number of subsites within EnergyDeck, you can sort of model a site with regards to how the physical structure of the site. The lack of sub-metering is potentially an issue in terms of sort of breaking that data down, but again, if I understand correctly, from an ESOS point of view, that's potentially less of a concern.
Okay, that appears to be it on the question front. I think just to say that if you would like to contact either IES about ESOS Auditor or EnergyDeck about EnergyDeck, these are the contacts here. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope you join us for next month's webinar, which is going to be looking at some of these aspects of data collection in more detail.